And so with us today, we have Ashley Davis. Ashley is the Associate Director of the Outreach and Advocacy Program for AARP of New Hampshire. Shana Sylvia is a Communications and Outreach Planner, and she will discuss Stratford RPC's age-friendly programs. Scott Bogle is a Senior Transportation Planner, and he will discuss Rockingham's age assessment programs. Terry Johnson is from the Southwest Regional Planning Commission, and he will discuss Southwest implementation phase of the age-friendly program. Sylvia Van Auwelijk is the Executive Director for the Southern New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission, and she's going to be discussing their implementation phase of the transportation project. So the question and answer session today, we're kind of tight on time, so we're going to be answering questions at the end, and if time allows and the speakers are available, they will be able to answer a few questions throughout the presentation. But other than that, we're going to cruise right through, get through all the materials, and then we'll have question and answer at the end. In addition, if we do run out of time, the speakers have agreed to make themselves available after the webinar for any other questions that you may have. So having said all of that, I'm going to hand control over to Ashley.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So as Stephanie said, my name is Ashley Davis and I'm from AARP New Hampshire. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of livable communities and age-friendly, sort of what it means, why it's important, how it looks in New Hampshire, and what the process is before everybody goes into specifics and some of the exciting work happening. So, where did this come from? America is aging. These maps show the dramatic age shift that will happen by 2030. As you can see, the darker the blue, the higher the percentage of 65 plus citizens in the state. Today, almost 46 million people are age 65 plus, but that number will increase to 73 million by 2030. Age-friendly communities focus on accommodating the aging communities, as well as ensuring that communities are friendly and welcoming for at any age. So it's a community where people can grow up and old with ease, that's barrier-free. So it's designed for diversity and inclusivity. Age-friendly communities optimize opportunities for well-being. They adapt the natural and the built environment for everybody of all capacities. They meet the needs of people of all ages and allow for participation in many activities, everything from recreation to health activities and economics as well. In addition, AARP's age-friendly network, the foundation focuses on communities' elected leadership making a commitment to actively work with residents and local advocates to make their town age-friendly. Communities are able to enroll in AARP's age-friendly network. To do this, they will submit a membership application and commit to a 5-year process of improvement. These processes include conducting assessments, developing action and evaluation plans, implementing and assessing impact, and including the voice of older residents in all stages of planning and implementation. AARP is really a partner in this when a community signs up to be age-friendly. We provide plenty of roadmaps, pre-made surveys, and just additional support. Anyone in New Hampshire who's part of the age-friendly network can reach out to me at any time, and we'll brainstorm, problem solve, come up with ideas together. So why livable communities? The goal of livable work is for people of all ages to feel safe, to participate, be treated with respect. People in age-friendly communities have access to appropriate, safe, and affordable housing and transportation, which, as you'll see, is a big deal here in New Hampshire. Livable communities provide access to recreational opportunities and health services. Communication and access to that information is really important as well. Livable communities also allow all residents to be active and vital contributors to the economic, civil, and social life within the community. And if people can no longer support themselves, there's appropriate support. A lot of times people think about livable communities and they only think of, that Main Street mentality. But actually, AARP works to make sure that the age-friendly network is supporting communities of all sizes. This includes suburbs, rural, and urban areas. We actually have a whole rural network that provides specific training, specific ideas, and pathways for communities that may not be as compact. So, what does the network look like? The network provides a framework to help these local leaders engage residents and identify needs. It also assists in taking action to ensure that the communities are truly on the path to an age-friendly future. So far, more than 600 communities and 9 states use those 8 domains of livability framework to guide these discussions on housing, transportation, public spaces, social participation, and much more. This process has been really effective in creating better places for people of all ages. On AARP's website, you can access the map that you see in front of you, and it's completely interactive. So you can zoom right in on New Hampshire and take a look at all of the communities in our state that are working on livable. These 8 domains: outdoor spaces, transportation, housing, social participation, inclusion, economic and civic engagement, communication, and community and health services are really the goals that we live by. In New Hampshire, there are 18 different communities that have joined. All of the communities you see here have a 5-year plan, and they've started with assessments. They've been working towards increasing their livability score, and all of them are open to support from AARP. Some of the communities you see here are actually part of a regional approach as well, which is another way to combine resources and make a bigger impact. So what does this look like on the smaller scale? How do we do it? There's no cost to enrolling and becoming a member. The first stage in that process is really gathering a team to work on the initiative and get municipal support. Second, people fill out an application to join the age-friendly network, and you get a signed letter of commitment from the elected officials in your community. This allows us to give resources so that an age-friendly assessment or survey can be conducted. It's important to take inventory of resources, listen to community to identify strengths and find areas of improvement. After that, an action plan is created to build on community strengths and preferences, and we watch progress together in that action plan to develop any new actions or paths that need to be taken. Sustainable culture change in your community to ensure that you are looking at all life stages and abilities in future planning. The chart that you see now shows community enrollment and how things have grown. You can see that as of this year, there's over 650 communities in the country. And that's a huge growth from where the program started in 2012. Some questions and logistical ideas for you to take a look at come from a survey that AARP held asking communities who are members of Age-Friendly Network some questions. What are the barriers? What has been working well? One of that questions was, who are the key partner organizations? So you'll see that many age-friendly networks are working with other organizations to advance their cause. This can include municipal government. It especially includes volunteers and aging services. Generally, towns will have some sort of age-friendly need. Often they'll partner with a local nonprofit, a healthcare provider, or higher ed as well. Regional planning organizations are also key, and you'll hear from a lot of their stakeholders today. Some of the barriers some barriers always happen no matter what you're working on, but there are a lot of ways to overcome those barriers. Some of the most important aspects of overcoming barriers is gathering information and ensuring that your public is in greater support of age-friendly. This can include survey work and a lot of communication with the members of your community. Ensuring that public sector actions, making sure that they are all aware and educated as to what the age-friendly network is, can really help. Regional coordination is so important and can make a huge difference. Like I said, there are many communities that work together in a regional approach, and they're able to have a really big impact. Other ways of overcoming barriers includes working with internal government, helping to advocate to change public policy, or communication with the private sector as well. There are a lot of resources that AARP offers along the way. Please feel free to visit our Livable Communities website. We offer more than 20 free publications you could download, or we can send it to you via print. And we have a weekly newsletter that reaches more than 100,000 leaders. You can sign up for updates as well. We even have a community challenge grant program that municipalities and nonprofits can apply for. That's the big overview of what the network looks like. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in chat or reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about this at any time.
Great. Thank you very much, Ashley. Again, at the end of in the slides, we do have all the speakers' contact information as well for questions to follow up with. And so next we have Shana from Stratford RPC to talk about their age-friendly program. So take control, Shana.
Okay. So today I'm going to be talking about our age-friendly programming and chatting what we're doing at SRPC. CHAT is our acronym for our project, which is Communities for Healthy Aging Transitions. We originally learned about the work that Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission was doing when Sylvia Von Olick came and did a presentation to our commission in December of 2018. We thought that the work they were doing was great and really interesting and wanted to replicate it here in the Stratford region. So we went out for the Tufts Health Plan Foundation funding in early 2021, and we recommended a program which included the following components: a big outreach piece to inform all the work that we were doing. A survey went along with that, and we wanted to also create some kind of artistic representation of people sharing their input. So we created a postcard where people would draw what they wanted to see in terms of preparing their communities for being age friendly. We then are in the phase right now of completing 18 community assessments with the feedback that we heard, which will then be boiled down to working with 4 of those communities on action plans, and then 2 of those communities to actually implement items from the action plans. And we also decided to organize by the 8 livability domains, which were mentioned in the previous presentation. So we framed it around these areas of housing, transportation, social participation, and the others that were mentioned. See if I know how to work this here. Some of our statistics from our outreach: we talked to 110 citizens through our virtual forums. We had to engage with people during the pandemic, which was challenging, so we held everything via Zoom and used Zoom rooms to facilitate those. We also had the unique opportunity to work with Professor Mary Friedman's capstone planning class at the University of New Hampshire. So we had 26 students who were able to come help us facilitate at those forums. And they also did data analysis for each of our 18 communities, which helped inform the assessments that we're finalizing right now. On our online survey, we were able to hear from 487 respondents. And we created an awesome YouTube video which detailed what our project scope was, and we would share it at the beginning of each meeting. And it was an intro to kind of getting that feedback at the forums. And we had 163 views on that on our YouTube channel. So some of the items we learned throughout the process so far, and hearing from community members, not surprising, 50% of respondents, when asked about their top concerns about growing older in their community, were concerned about affordable housing. We obviously know that's an issue, and all of the planning commissions are working right now on their regional housing needs assessment. So we're looking at this in a more detailed scope now. Transportation was also a high concern as far as getting around as people age. We heard about senior programming. Some of our larger communities have their own senior centers, but some of the smaller, more rural communities do not. So interesting to hear about potential opportunities for having like a shared resource like that. Also, we heard a lot about municipal communications and people not knowing that certain resources existed. So how can a community share that information better? And we also learned, and not surprising, that there are unique needs in each of our communities, especially in the rural versus urban communities. So our next steps, as I kind of mentioned, tying into the components of the project, is we're finalizing these 18 assessments. From there, we'll take those opportunities that we identified and we'll write 4 action plans with implementation items. And then that boils down to 2 pilot projects with 2 out of 4 of those communities, and kind of implementing what flushes out from the action plans. So that's the age-friendly work that we've been doing here at Stratford. And I'm going to pass it back to Stephanie. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we are going to cruise along now and have Scott Bogle from Rockingham Planning Commission. So Scott, you can take control.
All righty. Thanks, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Let's see, next slide. Awesome. So I'm Scott Bogle. I'm a Senior Transportation Planner with Rockingham Planning Commission, and appreciate the opportunity to talk with you a bit about the age-friendly planning work we've been doing in the Rockingham region over the last 11 months now. So as with the other regional planning commissions, we've been fortunate to get a 2-year grant from the Point 32 Health Foundation, formerly Tufts Health Plan Foundation. Whoops. We seem to have notes view here.
I don't think the other people can see the notes.
Yeah, we don't
Okay.
see your notes, Scott.
All right, great. At any rate, we've had funding from Point 32 Health Plan Foundation, as well as supplemental funding from AARP New Hampshire. We've partnered on this with the Rockingham Nutrition Meals on Wheels program as our fiscal agent, and they've also been a terrific resource in terms of outreach, and I'll talk about that in a minute. As with the other planning commissions, we are using the AARP national framework. And since we're sort of the newest kid on the block among the regional planning commissions, we've been fortunate to be able to draw on the experiences of Southern and Southwest and Stratford, as well as the work that AARP and the Gibson Center did up at the Mount Washington Valley. A couple of local projects here in our region by City of Portsmouth and Town of Exeter pre-COVID. And then also drawing on assistance from the Alliance for Healthy Aging and the State Commission on Aging. So our approach has been a little bit different, I think, than in some of the other regional planning commissions. We didn't feel that we had the bandwidth to take on 27 assessments for all of our member communities. And so we proposed to Tufts to work with 6 communities in the first year, 4 communities in the second year, and spend additional time, more intensive focus time in those specific communities. In year 1, we're working with Exeter, Fremont, Hampton, Hampstead, Portsmouth, and Stratham, and then we'll recruit our year 2 communities to start the year 2 assessments this fall. At the end of each year of the grant, we'll be doing regional forums where we'll share the results in September of the year 1 work and recruit communities through that forum, in part for the year 2 assessments. As with Southern and Stratham, we also built funding into the Tufts proposal to do community implementation projects, 2 of them in year 2, such that the 6 communities that participate in the year 1 assessments can apply for RPC assistance with a project to implement, to address needs identified through their assessments. So each of those community assessments is guided by a local steering committee that we've been meeting with regularly. Those steering committees include key town officials, as well as residents, with an emphasis on having older adult residents participating and providing their knowledge and guidance. Central to each of the assessments is the community survey, 1 or 2 community forums. We've done a pair of forums each in 3 communities thus far. Input from the steering committee, a demographic profile, which also draws on the Healthy Aging data report that was done by AHA with Tufts funding and Endowment for Health funding, I believe, several years ago, and then a profile of services and programs available for older adults in each community. So we are currently developing assessment reports now for completion this summer. I won't go into these, but as with Stratford, we are working with the 8 dimensions of livable communities, age-friendly communities that AARP has defined. So our survey approach, we have worked with AARP's national survey template and somewhat condensed versions of that have been used in the other regions. We allowed minor variation across communities. Each community could add up to 2 questions on specific local issues they are interested in, but we wanted to ensure comparability across communities. We tried to emphasize online survey responses, but have also distributed a lot of paper copies in each community. And we've been really pleased with the response to date. We have a little over 1,350 responses across the 6 communities so far. Highest in Exeter. Hampton's survey was actually just fielded a week and a half ago and are off to a good start with their response. In year 2, we'll also do a region-wide sample in communities that may not have participated in the full assessments. Some key themes have emerged that have actually been surprisingly consistent across the 6 communities. And you see them here. Really far and away, the most significant concern we heard was transportation options. How am I going to get around once I'm no longer able to drive? Also concerns about availability and cost of in-home services, interest in recreational and social activities and having better access to those, housing options, and then something that perhaps shouldn't have surprised us because we heard about this from Sylvia from Southern's work, but we heard a lot about many survey respondents really were not aware of services and programs that were already available in their communities. So there's been a lot of discussion among the communities and how they can better communicate with residents. We're still working on a detailed qualitative assessment of all of our written responses, the open-ended responses on the survey, but we did sort of a quick and dirty one of those by putting all of the open-ended text responses to a question about if you have concerns about growing older in your community, what could be done to address those. We put all of that text into a word cloud generator. So you see here the largest font. Transportation shows up in the largest font. It was the most common word that came up in those responses, but you also see housing, services, affordability, taxes. So just kind of to wrap up, a few reflections on the process to date. We've been really pleased with the level of receptiveness we've found to this in our member communities. You know, I think there seems to be broad recognition that supporting older residents and being able to age in place independently and with dignity is a appropriate role for towns, and that seems to be the case across the ideological spectrum. Something that was highlighted also is the value of in-person outreach. If you noticed on those numbers of survey responses by town, Exeter had far and away the highest response rate, and they had a staff member from their Parks and Rec department who spent a day at an Exeter Housing Authority apartment complex for older adults and worked with residents on filling out paper copies of the survey. We've had great partnerships on outreach. I mentioned Meals on Wheels had been helpful. They brought surveys out through their drivers to all of their home meal client delivery, home delivery meal clients. And also had assistance in Exeter from a group called the Racial Unity Team that distributed the survey to their membership, and we're similarly working now with Seacoast NAACP to similarly get the survey distributed out to their membership, which is helping us get a more broadly representative sample than we sometimes get on planning surveys. And then finally, we've been fortunate to have great guidance from partners, including the other planning commissions, AARP, the Alliance for Healthy Aging, the State Commission on Aging. So that's a summary of what's been happening thus far in the Rockingham region. So let me at this point turn it back to Stephanie.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Scott. And now we're going to be moving right along to Terry from Southwest Regional Planning Commission. He's going to give their planning of age-friendly programs. So Terry, you can take control.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Terry Johnson, and I am Senior Project Manager at Southwest Regional Planning Commission. And we have been involved in age-friendly planning and implementation for going on 4 years now. We've like the other RPCs have indicated, we have been fortunate enough to receive 2 rounds of funding from Tufts, currently Point 32 Health. And the first was a 2-year grant that we had for conducting a planning study. I'm not going to go through that. That is, we did something very similar to what the other RPCs have done in terms of surveying and public meetings and gathering information and looking at all the trends related to the changing demographics within the region. And I do want to say we have a unique partnership as well too with Cheshire Medical Center. Cheshire Medical Center actually serves as the grantee with the Point 32 Health Foundation and as fiscal sponsor on this, and as a very active partner implementing this work. So we're doing a lot of putting a lot of effort into aligning our efforts with what is happening with the public health network and trying to integrate our activities with theirs as well. So after we completed the planning study, then we used that information to move into putting together another grant application to Point 32 Health Foundation and getting a 3-year grant to actually implement the findings of our study. And in terms of what we're focused on, so we focused both the study and our implementation work on these 4 theme areas. So we're focused on making improvements at both the community level as well as the regional level around transportation alternatives, improving opportunities for social engagement for all ages, focusing primarily on the older adult population though, improving housing options, as well as economic opportunities. And so we, so what we did is we're spending a lot of our effort right now getting communities organized and up and running with implementing activities within their own communities. And these are, so what we've done is we've identified and are working with a group of 6 pilot communities. I'll show you who they are in a moment. But what we did with them was we were able to bring together leaders from each of those municipalities and to begin working with them to begin pulling together some community coalitions to help them identify and implement strategies to implement within their community. And so one of the things that we did do as part of the study was we developed, with all the data and information that we collected, 33 community profiles. And within those community profiles, this is just sort of a snapshot or an infographic of the town of Swansea and what's in there. So there's all kinds of demographic data in there. And then based on the surveys and the listening sessions that we did, we found out what the needs are related to those four theme areas. And each town has an individual customized report containing that information, as well as a set of recommended strategies or opportunities to make improvements around age-friendly communities within each of the four theme areas. And so we pulled them together. We did a community kickoff meeting a couple of years ago, I think it's been now, with those 6 communities, brought them together, began to provide them resources, spent time with each of them sort of talking about what their priorities were. They identified those. And then coming out of that, we helped each of them develop an action plan. And we highly recommended that, rather than trying to take on the entire world, that they maybe identify, maybe 1 or 2 theme areas to work within at the most, and to select maybe just a couple of really key activities that they could do to make improvements in those areas. Because as we all know, even with the best community coalitions, and in particular in the case of municipalities, resources are limited, staff is limited, and all of that. So we're really pushing for them to go deep rather than broad, and to achieve some early victories. And I do want to say that it was very interesting working with formerly Tufts, but Point 32 Health Foundation, and submitting our implementation application. They were very good about helping us sort of, after we submitted it, refine it. And because COVID was happening and was coming on at the time, you'll see here that, they strongly recommended that we sort of identify some key strategies to work on related to COVID as well, too. So we decided to focus on emergency preparedness related to that, and that work is happening at the regional level. So these are the 6 communities that we're working with currently. The first 6 communities, the pilot communities, they will be the example for others that we'll be bringing on. So we intend to bring on another 5 communities over the last year and a half or so of the project. So we have Swansea, Jaffrey, Winchester, Hinsdale, Walpole, and Westmoreland. And as part of the resources that we're providing in receiving support from Cheshire Medical Center and our regional partners, and providing technical assistance and resources as well, is a community resource guide that we developed, which walks them through everything from how to pull together a community coalition, to developing a reasonable action plan, to communication strategies, and the whole works. Everything that we could think of that would help them be successful at what they're doing. In addition to that, we are holding approximately on a quarterly basis community networking meetings. So we bring them together so they can share lessons learned and challenges, and sort of cross-pollinate with one another as well. This just indicates, by each of the current 6 communities, what are the 4 theme areas that they're focused in right now. And specifically, these are the types of strategies that they're focused on. So there's the biggest area that folks are working on is around housing options. And so that's where folks are going fairly deep with that. But, just as an example, so some of them are looking at providing more intergenerational mixed income housing options. Through zoning, they're looking at, modifying existing zoning. They're looking at Winchester, for example, made some recommendations at town meeting this past go round to look at some village type development in there. And in Jaffrey, for example, around the economic development front, they are looking to do some infill around current storefronts, vacant storefronts, working with the Hannah Grimes Economic Development Center to do that. There's some really great partnerships that are forming. Pretty much everybody's working on improving transportation options. A lot of that has to do with improving access to transit and community transportation, but complete streets, and looking at basically all the different options. But what I just wanted to focus on more so is there some really interesting work that's happening around improving social engagement opportunities and housing as well. I talked about housing a little bit, but I did want to mention that Swansea, for example, is looking at really integrating their community transportation improvement work with their social engagement. So they've done a lot of great work through a separate Complete Streets grant program to improve bikeability and walkability near their town center and near schools, and which in turn are providing more transportation options for people to access a community recreation center and some other opportunities to be involved in social engagement. In Hinsdale, they're going to be looking at doing some improvements, increasing hours at a community center that they have, putting in a kitchen, and basically increasing the number of programs that they're offering there as well. So these projects are really beginning to take on a life of their own. And not to get into the data part of it, but one of the things that I wanted to highlight in particular, of course, as is the case anywhere, there are housing challenges and challenges related to all of these areas. But in our community, the Tufts health data showed that our region has one of the highest rates of Alzheimer's disease within it. We don't know why, but we know that is is something that needs to be addressed within our region. So out of the 234 municipalities within the state, 16 of the top 20 with the highest rates are located of Alzheimer's are located within our region. And social engagement is going to be such an important area for our communities and our region to focus on, because increasing opportunities for social engagement can help to address some of the impacts of COVID with individuals. I'm sorry, of Alzheimer's. And then just very briefly, these are things that we're working on at the regional level. So looking at developing, doing some mapping around parks and play opportunities within the region, putting out rural transportation equity projects. Digital literacy is another area that we're focused on with our partners. And much of our work is being done very deliberately to align with existing initiatives that are happening in the region, so that we're not working within a silo. And I think I will leave it there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Terry. And so now we are going to turn it over to Sylvia. Sylvia, you are ready to take control.
Hooey, my favorite phrase of all time. Right, let's see. And that's interesting. So I don't even know where I am right now. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Whew. All right, so Sylvia Von Aulock, I'm the executive director here at Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. I'm a little taken aback because my screen looks very different, I think, than your screen. Hopefully you can just see the main view. Good.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Looks like you're good to go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I just want to say right off the bat, I am so excited to hear about all this work. I feel like I planted a seed 5 years ago. Well, I grew the initial seed here at Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission regarding an age-friendly program, thanks to our support with then Tufts Health Plan Foundation, with support from AARP New Hampshire, and of course, New Hampshire Department of Transportation. So today, buckle in, friends, because this is going to be a wild ride. We have 5 years to review, but I'm going to focus in mostly on the importance of transportation. Gosh, I hope I can do that. Yes, I can. All right. I'm throwing my pages down as we go. So our program consisted of multiple phases, and you've got glimpses of this from the other regional planning commissions. The first phase, the community assessments, in which we worked with our communities, and we have 14 communities in the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission region. And we, by identifying assets, opportunities, and roadblocks, really focused on community infrastructure and programming for millennials and seniors. When we wanted to start our age-friendly program, we knew that most people relate age-friendly with elderly adults, but we wanted to make a concerted effort to include people of all ages, but it's specifically millennials, so young adults. And we did this through community conversations and multiple surveys. In phase 2, we reviewed the assessments with all our communities and invited them to create pilot programs that address specific issues. And in phase 3, we continued that work. And then I decided, look, I'm going to take this fantastic conversation of age-friendly communities and I'm hitting the road. And I went to, I believe, 7 of the other 8 regional planning commissions, and I have no doubt I'm still talking. So one thing we decided to do, you've all heard now about AARP's 8 domains of livability. Well, we wanted to adapt those and just sort of zoom right in on 4 land use topics, which you can see here: transportation and accessibility and connections, housing, the trends, needs, diversity and zoning issues, recreation and engagement, and business and economic development. So we conducted multiple surveys, but the one question I come back to all the time is this one. What concerns you the most about aging in your communities? And in this particular slide, you can see how we divided up the participant answers into millennials and seniors, millennials in green and seniors in purple. And what we found interesting from the very beginning was that both cohorts had the same concern, number 1 being transportation. And then you can see the ones that sort of tied for a second were recreation, engagement, and housing. So we're going to zoom in on just that transportation element. Another question we asked: how would you rate your community's transportation options if you were unable to drive? We thought this was quite revealing. You can see how unhappy both younger adults and older adults are in transportation options. The phrase, "if you don't drive, you can't exist in this town," those specific words, "you can't exist in this town," came up whether it was a rural community, an urban community, didn't matter. We heard repeatedly that there weren't options. Some discussion on, at that point, upcoming was Uber and Lyft, but many, especially older adults, were not comfortable with that system because they weren't familiar with it. So some of the assessment takeaways as related to transportation: number 1, that transportation was the number 1 issue regardless of age. The need for out-of-the-box solutions in creating awareness of existing programs and in developing new programs. That communication is essential in keeping residents, businesses, community groups connected and involved. Creating partnerships and volunteer opportunities should always be encouraged, and that everyone wants a walkable community. So our community pilot programs, you've heard a little bit about this. Also, the notion of pilot programs from our other regional planning commissions. Well, for us, this second year, we offered all our communities the chance at pilot programs. And each year we took on 3 communities. We utilized this focus survey to inform a planning effort, communication strategies, community coordination with transit service outreach, volunteer driver program assistance, or identifying a zoning ordinance roadblock. And I'm going to provide examples for the 2 you see here in red. So Several of our communities utilize the pilot program as an opportunity to jumpstart their master plan update process. We conducted surveys for 4 of our communities on typical master plan elements, but with each category, we asked participants to consider those topics. So whether it was transportation, community facilities, recreation, etc., but each one with a filter for age-friendly elements. We also assisted the communities in getting input from adults of all ages. And from that input of the surveys, we assisted the community planning departments with recommendations that incorporated age-friendly considerations. And I'll say I think the first time for New Hampshire, we now have master plans with age-friendly elements. So woohoo on that one, right? I actually did just do that. An example question for those master plan efforts. For those who cannot drive or choose not to, would you support the use of taxpayer funds to subsidize any of the following programs? And looking at the responses, the planning departments were able to guide their master plan process in developing reasonable recommendations that the majority of their community could support, such as creating a volunteer driver program. Transit awareness, and Scott spoke to this a little bit as well. The more we dove into these surveys, the more we realized that residents, regardless of age, many don't know about the services, programs, and opportunities there are, especially for transportation services in their community. So we wanted to work with several communities on focused transportation and transit surveys and improve understanding regarding awareness on transit and ridership. This just gives you an idea on how many communities wanted assistance, both with master plan updates, those in this sort of orangey red, and also those who wanted assistance with outreach, and some wanted assistance with both. An example of one of those questions was, we asked residents about their knowledge about local transit organizations. 3 of our communities you can see here, Londonderry, Chester, and New Boston. And we found if you look at it as the glass half full, about 44 to 55% knew about existing transit programs. If you look at it half empty, it's 45 to 56% didn't know about transit programs. But we can say about half knew and half didn't. But for those who did know, only 2 to 4% ever utilized that transit system. So Ashley, right in the beginning, talked a little bit about age-friendly communities who make the commitment to become age-friendly through the ARP route. Goffstown, 3 cheers for Goffstown, was the first community in New Hampshire. Londonderry was either second or third, and Manchester is one of the most recent communities. Goffstown worked with us on a pilot program to do transit outreach. And one of the exciting things was, it was the first time I sat down at a planning table with librarians, transit representatives, the Y, town manager, planners, rec people, and together we created a wonderful outreach program. So this is just an example of Goffstown Old Home Day. This is pre-COVID. And this gave an opportunity as kind of that touch the bus kind of thing. But for the first time, I'm guessing the folks in the back of that bus actually got onto a transit vehicle. They could meet the driver. They could see how comfortable. It was clean. It was air conditioned. They loved it. And so they would become future riders. So lessons learned on transit specific and age friendly. We've got to make transit fun. We've got to collaborate bus rides with community events like a Scarecrow tour or the Holiday Light tour just to get people on that bus for the first time. We can make a fun session by what you just saw photos of, touch a bus, or a trip to the local ice cream store. And I think any transit provider will help work with that. Give out vouchers for new riders. Create a bus buddy program. And one of the things we most recently did with 6 of our communities, we reviewed their websites to see what sort of transit information was on their website. And only 2 communities, again, Goffstown was one, Hooksett was the other, that actually had an easy path to find out about the transit. And that's the end of mine. Thanks to all the partners. Thanks to you. Thanks for everybody for coming today. And I think now, Stephanie, we're going to questions.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. I am going to take control. One of my favorite sayings as well, Sylvia. I'm going to take control from you. And we're going to move along here. Just quickly before we get into questions, the slides for this presentation were put into the chat. So you'll have a copy of this as well. They're going to be available probably early next week on our webpage, which is still unfortunately under OSI, but it's also linked to our YouTube channel where the whole presentation will be available. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware, in case you missed it, that these are our speakers' contact information. And again, they've been ready, willing, and able and gracious to take questions outside of the presentation today. So let's see if we have any questions kicking around in the chat at all. Anyone and anyone? Just throw your questions in the chat. Anyone want to raise their hand as well? We can do that if you're on the phone for questions. And Sylvia Tara gave us a shout out, Tara Bamford in the chat. Thank you, Sylvia, for getting this ball rolling, and Stephanie for organizing today's update. You're welcome. I actually, have to have full disclosure here that my colleague Noah Hodgetts was actually the one who rallied these presenters. I'm kind of pinch hitting for him to take this this issue to our webinar series, and we're very glad that we were able to. We do also, oh, there's Noah jumped in there. He snuck in. So kudos to you, Noah. Thank you for having the idea and organizing this. I just kind of took it to the finish line. But there is a survey link as well that we have put in the chat. So please, if you take a few minutes at any time to fill out the survey that we ask, how we're doing, any future topics, minus our technical difficulties. We're still cruising along with these planned webinars on a monthly basis, and we're always welcome to suggestions for topics and speakers.
Stephanie, I have a question for our participants out there. If they have any age-friendly concerns in the communities they work with, are they seeing? I mean, we're an aging state. We're all aging. We have that in common, which is why I think it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you sit on. This is obviously a growing concern, and I'm wondering what people are finding out there as concerns as they age, or their community ages. Come on, be brave.
Yeah, good question. Turn it on to the attendees.
Yeah.
To be involved.
Come on, Robin. What do you have to say?
Where's my friend Carol Ogilvy?
Oh, we do have a hand up.
Great. Tara, for everyone, Tara Bamford's making the comment that transportation and housing in all of our towns, does seem to be the reoccurring theme. What I was going to say quickly, I guess, if anyone, here we go. Here's a question.
Yep,
Have
I
you
allowed mic and camera for the participant, Gabriella.
Okay.
You can
Perfect.
unmute
Okay.
yourself.
Gabriella, go ahead, please. Thank you for the
Hi.
question.
So my name is Gabriela Lozada from NHPR News. My question, I cover the Latinx community in the southern part of New Hampshire, and one of the concerns people have is elderly services that are provided in other languages. Is there any plans considered like for this?
Good question. Thank you very much. If anyone has any experience with that, or maybe just jump right in, please.
You know, we in Manchester, when we had our community conversation in Manchester, one of the things that was brought up was if you're an immigrant or refugee and you're new to the States and you don't have a car, you don't know how to use the transit system, your America is the like 4-block radius that you live in. That's America. And we heard that. But as far as translating age-friendly plans, I'm not aware. Great question. You know, I don't know if anyone else that's undergoing assessments right now. I know when we worked with State Committee on Aging, that particular survey was translated in multiple languages. So I know that happened. And we had that going around all over, but I don't know that there were any, if that was utilized. I'm not aware.
I think that is a great question. I'm also not aware on a local level. I do know that many of the resources, toolkits, and surveys that AARP develops, they do also translate into other languages. So there is some access at least there, although it may not be New Hampshire specific.
Great, thank you, and hopefully that answered your question and gave you some information to look into further. We do have one question from Rebecca Sky. Have you, I guess, just for the panel and in general, have you experienced any pushback on using AARP's framework? We'll go around the table. Sylvia, yes or no?
No.
Scott, yes or no?
We haven't. I know Todd Fahey from AARP had indicated that in some parts of the country there had been some pushback because of connection with World Health Organization, but we've heard nothing around that.
Shana, yes or no?
We have not either.
Good. Terry, any pushback at all?
No, we haven't had any.
Very good. Fantastic. Okay, we are right. Looks like we got through everything, and thank you very much for the cooperation and the time and the expertise from all of our speakers today. We appreciate you helping us put on this webinar on age-friendly communities. And we're right at 1 o'clock, 1:01 according to my time. So we're going to wrap it up. And again, please, participants or anyone that thinks of a question afterwards, all the speakers' contact information is available in the slides, and you can look for our recordings and our survey and as well other planned webinars on our webpage and on our YouTube page. So again, thank you very much, everyone. To our presenters, thank you again for your time, and have a good day, everyone. Thank you.